Hi everyone, my name's Laura Binding and welcome to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to use a lampwork bead and some bare copper wire and to create this beautiful pendant here. So I'm just see if I can get a close up for you. So there we have the pendant. As you can see, it's quite a sizable pendant, but fear not, because I've actually worked in collaboration with another wonderful chainmail artist, Fleur Hastings, and I'm going to put a link down below for her tutorial on how to make an amazing spiral, inverted spiral chainmail weave necklace that will go perfectly with this pendant. So we've had a chat, we worked together on this, and we wanted something that's going to be a real statement individual piece. So her tutorial is available. As I said, I'll put a card up here hopefully if I can, and I'll put the link down below for her channel, but she's done the tutorial and she's also selling kits for that. I will also be selling some kits for you to be able to recreate this yourself. So again, I'll put my website down below for you. They are going to be limited, but I will be, you know, even if you don't get the kit or you have your own gemstones or beads or anything like that, the tutorial is still obviously available for you to watch and learn. But if you love this and you want to make your own, then the kits will be available and I'll pop that down for you. Every lampwork bead will be individual. And again, I've teamed up with Creaky Beads to get the lampwork beads. Anyone who watches any of my channel knows I'm slightly addicted to her lampwork beads. She does incredible glass work, and so I'm very honoured that she allowed me to work with her as well. So this is a really exciting project for me. Anyway, that aside, we'll be doing, as I said, this pendant. Here's a slightly smaller version. This was like my trial, my sort of test run, shall we say. And I really loved how this turned out, but this is slightly smaller, this one. But this is the size of the sort of pendants that you will be getting. They're very substantial and you can see the glasswork on them, absolutely incredible and individual. So for this, I will go into what we need in a moment. But yeah, I hope you like the project and let's get started. So the materials that you're going to need for this project are some 1mm bare copper wire, some 0.4 bare copper wire, and your lampwork bead. Now these lampwork beads are quite crucial to these designs because they have a really generous drill hole. This really helps us being able to put several pieces of wire actually into the drill hole. It just really aids with the design. So if you're not using a lampwork bead, then you need to make sure that the drill hole is going to be very sizable so that you'll be able to put multiple pieces of wire down there. The tools that you'll be using are very simple. You'll be using your chain nose pliers, flush cutters. These are optional, but these are bell making pliers, and these are your round nose pliers. I've gone ahead and cut 3 lengths of my 1mm wire, and I've cut about 20 inches. This will vary according to the size of your bead that you're using and how much decoration you want, but you will need a fair amount of wire to be able to make sure you can go around the whole of that bead and decorate it. What I'm going to do is take my bead. Now make sure again that you look at the bead from both sides and that you decide on what will be the front. The flowers on this particular one are facing towards me on this one, so it has to be this side. Going ahead and feed in all 3 wires through that bead and going down about halfway so that the bead is sat in about the centre of my wires. So you'll see how the wires are positioned. They're almost laying parallel to each other. So I'm just going to take, now I'm right-handed just to clarify, so I'm actually taking the left wire and bringing that around. It really doesn't make a difference. You can go left or right. This is just my preference. You'll find a way that works naturally for you. And I want to really push that wire and bring it all the way up so it really molds around the edge of that bead. Really push that up because you don't want that to bulk out too much, so it adds a frame. Keeping these wires here nice and steady. I'm going to just bring that wire, actually I want it to go around the back, So bringing it around the back so it wraps. Now when you move these wires, everything's still going to move, so just try not to let it move out of place. I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and just very gently pinch that so it's nice and tight around these 3 wires here. So that's where we're at. I'm then going to split out these 3 wires, and the wire that we have just wrapped, the wire that we brought all the way this wire here, I'm going to just encourage that. Keep it nice and straight so that we can incorporate this one as part of the bail as well. Make sure the wires are sitting in the correct position, and we now have the wires in place to create a woven bail. So I've just cut myself a workable length of 0.4 wire off the reel, and what I'm going to do is feed it in between the wires, and I'm just going to secure it. So leaving a bit of tail, I'm going to hold that about against the Lampwork bead, and I'm going to wrap just this outer wire here 1, 2, 3 times. Now I'm going to get a little bit closer for this because I really want you to be able to see this weave. Now I'm going to just show you the ends quickly. So I'm just going to bend these wires so that I can see which wires are which. I do the same on the middle ones here as well. I'll just show you, you can see what I mean. So my wire, what I'm going to be doing is a figure of 8 weave effectively, but I'm going to just catch these 2 in a sort of basket weave. My wire is behind, so if I said 1, 2, 3, 4. So my wire is behind, is in the middle at the moment of 1 and 2. It's going to come up in between 2 and 3, and then around the second wire. Then it's going to go across the back of 2 and 3 and come up into the middle of 3 and 4. And then it's going to wrap the 3rd wire. It's going to come back up in between 3 and 4. And it's going to wrap the 4th wire 3 times. 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and then we're going to do the same to get back over to the other side, but your wire will be in front now as opposed to behind, so the wire is in front. So we've still got 1, 2, 3 and 4, so it's in front. It's now going to come in between 2 and 3 and wrap the 3rd wire, so it comes up back up in between 3 and 4, over 2 and 3, and in between 1 and 2, and then back up in between 2 and 3 towards the front again, and then back down in between 1 and 2. And it's going to come and wrap this number 1 wire 3 times. So 1, 2 and 3. I'm just going to take a quick moment to show you on a separate bit of scrap wire, just so you can really see without any obstacles in the way. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3 times around the outer wire, in this case wire number 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go in between, so it's going to come up in between 2 and 3 and wrap number 2. It's going to come across the back of 2 and 3 and up in between 3 and 4, and then back down in between 2 and 3 and back up in between 3 and 4, and then it's going to go over 1, 2, 3 times over that 4th wire. So what we're doing is a separate weave in the middle here, and then just kind of going over and under to these two wires. So the wire is back up, it's facing me, it's in between 4 and 3. So it's going to come over and into the middle of 2 and 3, and then go all the way around and back up between 3 and 4. It's going to go straight across 2 and 3 and back up into the middle of 2 and 3, and then back down in between 1 and 2. It's going to wrap number 1 3 times. 1, 2, 3. It's behind again, so it's now going to come across and in between 2 and 3, all the way over and back down between 1 and 2. Straight across the back of 2 and 3 and up in between 3 and 4. And back in between 2 and 3 and back up in between 3 and 4. Over and wrap number 4 3 times. So it goes around, across, back up and around, and in between. So I'll just do a couple of rotations for you to see. 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's a very effective little weave. Once it starts to get going, looks really cool. And that is what you're going to be looking at. I'm hoping that was clear. Please feel free to ask if it doesn't make sense. So you can see I've built this up a little bit. You don't need to go crazy with it, because what we need to do next is actually kick this into a diamond shape. Okay, so I mean, the height that you go up is obviously up to you. It depends on what you're going to be adding this pendant to. I like to give my bales, I like my bales to be quite chunky, because it means that you can put Viking knit through it, an inverted spiral chainmail weave, thank you Fleur, through it, and so on, leather, whatever you choose to sort of hang your pendant on. So what I'm going to do is cut this little tail now, because we don't need it anymore. And my bale at the moment, because this is about half the size of, it's going to do another half, so this will be the height. My bale is about 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do now is kick these into a triangle. So taking my chain nose pliers, just pushing that weave down to make sure it's nice and tight, and just bending that into a nice sharp angle, and go over to the opposite side and do the same. Now obviously these are all crossing, so what we're going to do now is just hold it all together and just sort of bring it out and shape it, because this section here needs to mirror this section here in sort of height. Okay, but you want them all to be open so that you'll be able to pick up your weave again. None of these wires should be crossed over at any point. They should all be sort of next to each other. And then we're just going to continue the weave. But what I will say is just take a little bit more care and control when you're going down. So on this bit here, it opened out into a V. It's closing down into a V now. So what will happen is the wire will sometimes try to skip down a little bit. So just be a little bit slightly, very fractionally looser when you're actually wrapping it around, so just have that control. And I tend to hold the weave. I'll do a quick rotation to show you what I mean. Okay, run over here, so instantly it wants to start here, so placing it where you want it to go and just being a little bit more, see how relaxed I'm in with that wire, really making sure it stays where I want it to go. And then I tend to just put my thumb over it to just again stabilize it a little bit, and same on the opposite side. Again, if I do that, it wants to stop a little bit lower, so I just have to almost relax it, let it go, place it where I want it to be, and then scoot it up. And continue until you're at this point. as you can see, we've gone all the way down now. The way the wires obviously come together is different to the way that they start. Your weave will look very slightly different. It's done exactly the same, but the wires are just pulled close, and so the weave looks slightly different, but that's absolutely fine. Once you're happy with that, I've wrapped 3 times around one of the outer wires. I'm going to take my flush cutters and trim that 0.4 wire away. It's going to seem a bit crazy, but we're not going to come back to this bale now until quite a little bit of a later stage. This is purely because we want to work on the decorative side. Then this will almost tie everything together, okay? If you find it's a little bit in the way, bring these wires together like this. Just move them slightly like that. As long as you are very gentle and your movements are quite fluid, this will be easy to re-straighten. Okay, so don't feel like, oh, I've got all these wires, don't know what to do. Just place them very gently like that, and it will be fine. What I'm going to do now is start working on these 2 wires down here. Now this will happen, it's perfectly normal, don't worry. The only thing I'd say is make sure that if you've chosen front side of your pendant, make sure it doesn't turn around without you realising and you lock it in the wrong way. But this will happen because we haven't really secured anything yet, so don't worry about that. Movement is absolutely fine. What I'm going to do, sorry, just turn it over so it's more comfortable, is so we've got 2 wires here, so I'm going to take the sort of outer wire and I'm going to bring this all the way up the same way as we did with this wire. Again, try to really hug that lampwork bead. Now you notice I'm bringing the wire behind the bale and keep it all nice and controlled and across to the front. So take your pliers, flatten to lock that into place. We're not going to worry about this wire at the moment. We're going to focus on the remaining wire that's coming from the lampwork bead. For the remaining wire that's actually coming out of the bead, I'm going to take a length of 0.4 wire again. Now again, you can choose to take some off the reel. Just a little tip as well. I have actually decanted my reel, because it's obviously a loose coil, onto an empty wire reel from, you know, a different brand. This Jewelry Maker one. It's empty, I've used it, so I find this easier to control than without it getting tangled up. So just a little top tip. So I've just taken a length of this, and what I'm going to do is hand coil it. So I'm going to take a little tail as normal, and I'm going to go towards the end, keeping it nice and straight. Just do a couple of sections, scoot it together and continue. A bit, scoot it together, a little bit, scoot it together, and you're going to get a really nice coil. So I've coiled about, for a quick look, about 3 inches. So I'm going to get rid of the little tail again. Try to remember that once your wire is established, you don't want any little potential sharp edges that you might forget about. So get rid of that. Scoot this all the way down so it sits nice and close to the bottom of the bead. Again, check your working from the front. And what I want to do is do a little swirl in this wire to bring it to this side. So I'm going to bring it up, and because I want it to go towards the left, this is going to be my left, I'm actually going to bring it towards the left and swoop it so it comes back around. So keep it nice and close. This is part of the reason I love working with the bare copper, because it's so malleable. I'm just keeping it all nice and flat, just using my finger just to create a little bit of decoration just there, and bring this all the way up. Okay, so I actually realised that that coil was a little bit too long, so I've just unwrapped. You can see the wire's a little bit kinked, but it'll be fine. So I've just unwrapped, so I want it to go probably about 2 centimetres from the top. So probably would have needed about 2 inches of coiling, but again it will vary depending on the size of the bead you're using, and it's easy enough to fix if you do too much. So what I'm going to do now is bring in the wire. So it depends which way it's coiling. So for me it's coiling away from me, so I want to bring that wire, and in the next rotation I'm actually going to come back up in between the wire, that very first wire we placed down. Move my tools. There we go. And just stitch these wires together. So I'm going to go around once, and I'm going to do that again around both those wires again. So 1 and 2. Scoot it down so it goes across. Visually you've got 2 little splashes of wire, and then just nipping up to that wire that we coiled and wrap in about 10 times. Obviously with a few wires going on here, I'm holding this in a position to demonstrate, so if I was doing this myself I would be holding it in front of me and it wouldn't all be getting in the way. So I've gone ahead and I have just added 3, so I've done that same pattern 3 times, so I've kind of added about 10 to 15 in between each one just to space that out. Just give that a little flatten if it's sort of moved. This is optional, but I personally just like the look, and also it stabilizes these and stops there being wires that may be able to lift and catch. I've coiled so that it's gone all the way up to the bail. The bail's just been moved out of the way slightly, don't worry about that, so that the wire is coming behind that bail. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. So what I want to do now is bring these 2 wires together. At the moment they're in the same direction, but there's a huge gap between them, so I need to bring this wire that's at the back towards the front and in that same direction to meet this wire here. This wire here is the wire that we initially locked into place here. Now I know you might say, well, why did I do it at that point and not now? It's purely because of the layering, so you can see how this is obviously laid over everything. It just works nicely. I personally felt it worked right. Again, it's your choice how you choose to do this. So I need to bring this wire around to come back into this direction. So I'm going to bring it across the front, and if I swirl it in that direction, so if I go around like that, it will bring it in this direction. If I go around like that, it will bring it in that one. So I'm going to fold it across, but come up slightly. Don't worry, this will become part of the design. Don't worry about the fact that you're going up into the bail. And this is another reason I've left the bail to until later to complete, because we're able to work with everything being flat and I'm not fighting with the bail now. So I want to bring it in this direction to join this one. So I'm just going to bring this around into a swirl and then back around, holding that in place with my thumb. It's going to come down, get this will be a nice swirl, and it places, and now these 2 are where I want them to be. Taking my chain nose pliers, I can position that to sit how I want it to sit, and then these 2 are meeting exactly as I want them to. What I'm going to do is just bring this wire back around so that it kind of comes down here, just to make it a little bit more fluid in the design. Okay, and then the same with this one. They're both going to come around that bail and back around towards the front here. So now you see how they're in a better place across the front, so that when I do the next bit of weaving it will be able to swoop across the front, whereas when they were placed where they were a moment ago, they were too far across. So, and then again, we don't have any bail in place, so it works perfectly. Feel free to use your pliers to just flatten everything into place. And then if you've got a little bit of your 0.4 left, brilliant, use that. If you haven't, add a little bit. What I'm going to do is just feed this around, 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to just wrap this until it just meets a nice place here. So I'm going to go 4 and then 5. That should be about right. I'm just going to do a figure of 8 weave. Okay, if you needed to add or cut any of your 0.4 wire should it break, that's how you would do it. So I would just wrap it at this point and cut it, the same as we did at the top of the bail, and then take a new piece, wrap it 3 times, and then just join that bail, join that weave. Once that wire is established, just get rid of that tail. So I'm just going to go over to the opposite side and wrap 3 times. So 1, 2, 3, and it's in the middle, so it's going to go around the lower wire. 1, 2, 3. The beauty of this weave is if I run out of wire, I can add it in again in the exact same way, because we weave around the single wires, it's easy to add into. I'm holding this like this just so that hopefully you can see exactly how it's done. I'm filming this in a way that you can see what I'm doing, not how I would do it if I was at home, so obviously I'm holding it in slightly difficult positions. I'm just going to continue until this little splash comes to the opposite side. Okay, so I've just done a bit of weaving all the way across. What I'm going to do is just get rid of this wire now. It's too short to really do anything else with. And so the next stage I'm going to do is this wire here is just going to come down and around. That wire will end up coming back around like this, and it will be coming around the front. But before we place it there, we need to do something with this wire, so I'm just going to move that one out of the way for you. It will have a home, and I'm going to take this wire and almost do a reverse of what we did on this side. So I'm going to take a coil, I'm going to feed that coil up to a certain point, and then do the same here where we just did a couple of wraps, and do the same on this side now. So you can see I've gone ahead and all I've done is just created a coil just here, fed that up, and then exactly the same, so just make sure you've got that shape looking exactly as you want it to look. When you get to this point, this is where we're going to bring this one. We want it to sit and sort of hug almost around the woven splash bit we did here. So just take that moment to get it to sit exactly, turn the piece around, look at the back, get it to go exactly as you want it to go, and around. If you need to straighten your wire at all, you know, take your nylon pliers. These are sort of just what I call them, my wire straighteners. Run that along. Just try to make sure it can mirror that curve. Okay, we're down to there. Then what I'm going to do is catch the back, so going through that sort of frame wire again, exactly the same as we did on the opposite side. Oops. Turn that piece around and bring it all up, bring that where it wants to go. Oops. Shimmy down, make sure it's where you want it to be. There we go. Got that sat as I want it to be. Make sure it doesn't move. But then what we're going to do is come across the new wire we've just added in from down here, and then that wire. So we're only going to hook it on that back wire, but we're still going to wrap once and then twice. But that second wrap, I'm feeding that wire back through. And in between, because I don't want to catch this wire, I just want to wrap this wire again, but it's just really stabilizing it and securing it to that other wire. 3, 4, 5, you can do 5 or 10, whatever amount of gap you want. I'm going to do 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yep, that. It's already done 5, so there we go, that's our 10. And I'm going to just do that same again. I'm probably only going to get one more wrap in, just purely because I'm really getting close here now. So again, I'm going to turn that piece over, feed that wire through the back, catch all 3 of those wires around once, and then just wrap the front 2 once, back over, and then just catch that back wire again. But just come in to the middle. Okay, now we're getting close to the start point again, so we need to start blending this in. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is this outer wire here, I'm going to very gently bring that behind that swirl we made and feed that wire straight up. So you can see I've got a perfect gap just there. That wire is going to come up back towards the front. So I'm just moving that weaving wire now. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that now. I don't think we need that anymore. Move that out of the way. And then I'm just taking that slightly shorter wire and just bringing that around behind that little loop as well. We're going to get rid of that in a moment, but I want to get this one, the longer one, done first. So following the sweep of that initial swirl we made, we're going to again bring in that wire all the way around. If it needs to be straighter, go ahead and straighten it all the way around, and then it's going to sort of, you can bring it wherever you want it to go, to be honest. I quite like it to sort of add that splash of detail just down the end there, but you can have it come all the way across if you want. But what you don't want is it to get too bulky and too layered. So I just like, because it's quite textural the way it looks, so I'm going to probably leave it as that. So we've got that wire really sort of hugging it, almost can go behind your weave. And now we need to get rid of this and secure it. And I just want to tuck and get rid of this end. So I'm going to just kind of blend it in. So it's going to go underneath some of this wire. It's just locking itself in, as you can see. It's just coming up here. So I can see it. And I can just sort of grab that and just get rid of that, almost bending it and locking it, oops, behind that wire there. It's coming back towards me now, so I can just tuck that away. It means there'll be no sharp edges. Really tuck that in. Remembering that this bail has still got to fold over, so all this is just going to be hidden inside the bail, so you're not going to see that. That's nice and smooth, there's no sharp wires there. That's looking like that. And then obviously we've got this little short end here. Hopefully, now this may or may, this depends, but sometimes you'll be able to just tuck, oops, sorry. Sometimes you'll be able to just trim this and tuck that edge right back up into that drill hole, because as I said, that drill hole is very generous. So I'm going to trim it a little bit, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. Just fold it around with your pliers, as you can see, and just gently, because you want it to look nice and sort of blended. You may have to just manipulate it a little bit, but that will hopefully, there we go. Can you see that that's actually going into the drill hole? If I push that down, and it's not going to be able to go anywhere because it's quite crowded in there. And what I'm doing now is closing my pliers, holding them closed, and just almost pushing to encourage that wire. You see how that's blended right down, and when you turn the piece over, there are no wires. It looks nice and smooth. So that's where we're at. So all those wires are gone now. So it's just a matter of doing this bail and finishing this piece off. So I'm now going to complete the bail. Obviously I think these wires are going to probably be a little bit too much, but I'd rather have them be a little bit too long and cut them, because as you see I didn't waste a lot of the wires from down here, pretty much used the whole length of them. So I'm now going to form my bail. So to do this, I'm going to take all of this whole woven section, very gently push that towards the front of my pendant. And you'll notice also that the pendant is locked now, it's not spinning anymore. So bring that forward very gently. So if I show you from the profile, it's just leaning forward. Then I'm going to take my bail making pliers. I'm going to go for the largest size, and I'm going to place them right at that sort of V where the diamond kicks in. And I'm just going to roll those wires over it. Now what I'm doing is bringing that section over, and I'm actually going to kind of push the pendant back as well, so it really gets that shape. And you can use your hand and sort of tweak it a little bit, get exactly how you want it to be. Then you've got 4 wires for the bail, so we're going to split them out into 2 sets of 2, nice and equal, keeping the whole piece nice and steady still with my hand, and just making sure you're 100% happy with that bail, the way it's going and the size. I'm just giving it like minor adjustments. I'm holding everything steady, just kind of wiggling that, so this section here is lined up where I want it to be. Now this is optional, but I love doing this. I'm going to take these wires and so we want the sort of 2 inner ones. Oops, sorry. If I see, I want the 2 sort of inside ones. And they're going to continue around and make an extension of the bail. So turning the piece over, taking those, okay, nice and straight. And you do need to be a bit controlled with this. I'm going to bring them up. So they go like that. And when I say you need to be controlled, because what can happen is they can get distorted in their shape to the side just here. We want it to stay the same on both sides. Okay. Bring my pliers back in. I can now roll those 2 wires, so they're going to give a frame to that bail. Take your time, use your pliers or your nails to just kind of tweak that to sit exactly as you want that to sit. Okay, you can see that. And then when I turn the piece over, this is what we've got. The 2 that we haven't rolled, I'm just going to clear them out of the way and towards the front, so that gives me a nice clean view of what's happening at the back. And I'm just going to cross these wires over, bring them, see I'm holding everything nice and together, and bring them just across like this. So they're going to look like that. And then again, we need to check that they haven't distorted, that they're still staying at the same size. So the wires across at the back, I'm going to bring them across. Now what I'm going to do is, you'll see that it's in the natural position for it really. This wire here is the one at the back. It's going to come all the way across and just sort of blend its way down to join a little bit of decoration. Now you could pop a coil onto it if you wanted to. It's completely up to you. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. Remember, you've got the choice to do whatever you want. You could just snip it and pop it into the bail if you didn't want to do anything with it. Again, looking at this, if hopefully you can see there's a bit of a gap just here, and I'm going to feed this wire down and through, just very gently controlling it, making sure it sits exactly as I want it to. Take your time, come in, play about with these wires if you want to, make sure they're sitting as you want them to look. There we are. So it's looking like that. Make sure your bail is nice and straight, because mine's trying to go a bit skew with. Pop your pliers back in, give it a little adjustment, make sure it's sitting how you want it to. Okay, there we are. So we've now got 3 wires at the top. If I turn it over, you'll see one of them is the wire from the extra bail part, and the other one is the initial part. So I'm actually going to bring this, move that one out of the way a moment, bring these 2 so they sit next to each other. Make sure that you're careful, because every time you pull these wires, again, it can distort it. And again, nice and slowly, bring this around into a kind of a swoop, almost. And then we're just going to bring that back around. I mean, you do whatever you want, but I just quite like that look. Blends in because we've already got a swirl there. And we can bring those wires all the way across to the back. And there are a lot of places that we can hide those wires now. So I'm going to just trim them. So they're at the back. Then I'm just going to tuck, so take my chain nose pliers, these in, where they can kind of blend in. There's a lot of like work going on here. Easy to blend it. Just make sure they are hooked, tucked in nice and securely, therefore that they can't come out or be caught or pulled out at all. Give it a little flatten, so they're tucked in there. They've just given that little bit of detail. Okay. Like so. And we just have to finish this off now. So we've got this wire down here that, again, you know, you can go on and on and on with this one. You can embellish it as much as you want, but I don't want that to, it doesn't need to do anything else. So I'm going to trim that, because remember it went through that gap, so it's locked, and I'm just going to tuck that into there. It's nice and hidden, you can't see it. Look at that little push, is actually sort of just slotted. Turn the piece over, because sometimes the end can come to the front. You can actually see there that the end has popped through. I don't want that, so I'm actually going to rearrange that, redo that. Be careful. So glad I'm showing you this, because if it happens to you and you're like, why is that happening? So what happened was, where I was pulling that wire, it was distorting the design we've done at the front. So remember to check it, because every time you do something else happens. So that's fine. Turn it back over. Holding this steady with my hand now. You can't see, but my hand underneath is actually stabilizing that. And I'm going to find a place I can tuck that wire nicely and securely. So I'm going to just pop it in there. I can see the end coming out now, just there. So I know that's not come through to the front. Quick feel, make sure there's no sharp edges. Push that down, check the front, make sure it hasn't moved. You're happy with that, and that's that end blended in. And then we have this fella, and you know, you can do anything you want with this. You could add it into down here if you wanted to. You could bring it back up, but for me, sometimes it's about looking at the piece and saying, is it finished? Every piece is going to be very slightly different. Your wires are going to be in different places, you know, and it depends on the gems, it depends on the stone as to how far you want to go, to be honest. I'm actually really quite happy with how this is looking, so I don't think I want to take this any further. So in that situation, I'm going to get this and blend this. I'm pulling this nice and tight, so it's actually going to blend in with this all the way around to the back, so it's locked into place. Cutters, and just tuck that sharp edge away. Sorry about that, my camera cut, so luckily it cut right at the very end. So there you have your finished design ready to go. Everyone's going to look a little bit different. You'll see here that I've got the very first one that I did as a sort of a prototype, the one that I've done for the sort of practice again, and then the one for the demo. I love this design. I just think it's really pretty. I think it really complements the Lampwork bead, because these beads are so beautiful and so intricate in their design that I just don't want to take away from that. I want to just kind of frame and embellish that detailing. So I really hope that you agree that this is a beautiful way to do so. There will be some kits and beads available on my website. Again, I'll put the details down below for you. And also don't forget that the wonderful Fleur has created a beautiful chainmail design to go with these kits. We worked together on this. We chatted. Made sure that we had designs that would complement each other. She's got bare copper and sterling silver versions available. She sells the kits, and she's done a tutorial on YouTube, of which I will pop down below the link to her channel and the video. I really hope you like this design. I really hope you like the kits and where we're going with this. Yeah, so here's to many more, hopefully. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to ask down below or message me. I'd love to help you out. I'd love to see your designs. I'd love to see what you guys make with this. So yeah, as always, all that's left to be said. Hope you liked this video. If you do, please give me a thumbs up. Love it if you could subscribe. And as always, have a great day.